Joining us now, former senior operations officer with the CIA, Mark Polymeropoulos. He has a new piece in The Messenger entitled, "Forget About Those Faulty Timelines for Ukraine's Success." Timelines are hard to draw. We had the Secretary of State on yesterday and wouldn't really give a sense of how long this is going to go, but it's also what is success, especially with the unrest and the new questions in terms of Putin's power that we're seeing in Russia.
Right, Mika. And so one of the I wrote the piece because I wanted to challenge kind of the notion that there were timelines. You know, you see in the past several weeks before the coup, and to be fair, we saw many U.S. officials kind of talking anonymously, saying that the counteroffensive was so important for Ukraine, and that the U.S. would then perhaps reassess support, that the West might get wobbly. And this is all, of course, predicated on the notion that Putin was the strongman. Putin had a firm grip on power. And so one of the things I think the events starting on Saturday, it in fact shattered that notion. So perhaps, Western resolve is significant, and perhaps Putin is not as strong as we think. And one of the things I put in my piece is, number one, I don't think it's fair, of course, to put all our marbles on this counteroffensive when we haven't given the Ukrainians everything that they needed. The F-16s will not get there in time. They still don't have ATACMS. But the other part, and I've talked about this on this show before, is I think that there is actually significant support within the U.S. Congress, including on the Republican side, for lengthy extended support for Ukraine. You have all the Mikes of the national security set: Mike McCall, Mike Turner, Michael Waltz, Mike Carpenter. And so ultimately, I think that we have to go with what Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, said, that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And perhaps we, in fact, both us, NATO, and Ukraine, can outlast Putin, who's looking a little shaky right now.
So, Mark, the Biden White House is pretty subtly suggesting that it is, in fact, the strong support for Ukraine led by Washington, but throughout the West, that has put Russia in this situation. The Prigozhin mutiny became because he had all these complaints about Russia's war effort, and things have gone so poorly there. So they're using this as argument to say, hey, look, we need to keep doing more. And that's going to be the subject of the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, in just 2 weeks' time. Do you think, though, as you look at this and you talk to your counterparts across Europe, there have been some wobbles in some European capitals about how much longer they can fully support this Ukraine effort, particularly if the counteroffensive does proceed sluggishly. But do you think what we saw over the weekend might actually convince some of them as well, Europe, the European leaders, to say, hey, we got to stay with this. It's working.
Jonathan, I really do, because, again, so much of this, the wobbliness was predicated that Putin can outlast us. And take a look at what's happened inside Russia. First of all, Putin is going to be distracted. We've already seen reporting over the last 24, 36 hours about a potential purge. A senior Russian general apparently has been arrested. And so Putin is going to be worried what's happening under his own roof. And then number two, of course, is that the Wagner Group, which, as I think you had a guest yesterday, Elliot Ackerman, talked about, really was something really significant on the battlefield. The Russians have lost that capability. This was their vanguard. This was kind of their shock troops. They don't have these 30,000 forces. They were brutal. They were horrific. But even the Ukrainians had said they were the most effective fighting force. So ultimately, I think, we haven't seen it yet, but we will see an effect on the battlefield. So I think you're going to see a stronger sense of European resolve in 2 weeks. And I would look also for things such as ATACMS to be on the table, to increase support. So I think ultimately, while Putin is still in power, he's weakened, but this is good for Ukraine in the end. I think we're going to see that theme at the NATO summit in 2 weeks.
So, Mark, the world has been getting a refresher course for the last year and a half in the Russian way of waging war, going after civilian targets, brutalizing territory, destroying cities, kidnapping children. You've been in Iraq, you've been in Afghanistan in your career. So let me ask you this question. Off the piece that we just showed of the mother and child being reunited, is it possible that we're looking at, in Ukraine, an entire nation with PTSD?
Yeah, Mike, what a great question. Of course, I've had quite a lot of experience from spending almost 3 years in conflict zones with my friends and colleagues from the intelligence services and from the military as well. And Ukraine, will be a damaged country. It's not just those who have been killed or wounded in action. It's not just rebuilding. It's also kind of a grand psyche of everyone. The trauma that has gone on there is incredible. There's also a whole bunch of NGOs and private organizations that are really dedicated to this. But it's not. It's something that the country itself is going to have to deal with, even if they end up prevailing in the conflict. And one thing I'll note, I noticed earlier today you were talking about Thomas Friedman's piece about what happens post Putin. But I would challenge that just a bit, saying that Putin's pretty damn awful. This is a war criminal. He's been indicted. The war crimes have been horrific. And I know there's always concerns about instability in the future in Russia, but, it's pretty damn bad now. And so I worry when we hear that notion, because it almost sounds like we would want him to stay into power. I think we got to be careful about seeing Putin as kind of this element of stability in the world. He's a pretty awful character and an indicted war criminal.